Los Angeles Mission College underground program, and they're the ones that really guided me through like literally we had printouts of the college applications and they took me step by step of like how to fill it out. I think if it wasn't for that, I don't know how I would have gotten to the college on my own. I mean, I probably would have still. It just would have taken a lot longer, way longer to figure. Like, I think I was born with some ambition, so it's like I always wanted to be the first at something. And I remember, and then just you know when they ask you that question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I remember I hated that because I could never answer. I wanted to be like 10 different things. Like I wanted to be like an archaeologist, and like I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then finally, I decided that I wanted to be the first woman president. And I was like, fifth grade. And I was like, well, how do I do that? And the first step was like, oh, you need to, go to school, get to college. And I'm like, okay, so I need to get to college to be the first woman president. That was my thought process. But then I also, with my family, like, none of them had the education. Um, they had no experience in college. So I kind of I felt like I needed it in order to help them guide us in this world, in the U.S. Like, I felt like it was needed in order to survive here. So that was another motivation. And I also wanted, part of me, even though I wanted to help my family, I also wanted to get the hell out of somewhere and get away from my family. So I needed that break. I needed to be off on my own. That was my part of my American dream. It's like I needed to get to college. Along my educational career, it's been a lot of teachers that, how, like, I don't know, teachers usually, if they like a student, they'll help them and they'll kind of guide them. And I feel like I was that student. Like, I always wanted to learn, and teachers picked up on that. So I had, like, really good teachers in elementary school, and I had a couple or good ones in junior high that really were the ones that were, like, would push you. If you started slacking, because everyone started slacking at one point or another. So they would just push you along. And then what motivated me also was at home that my dad was always very much like, you need to go to school and you need to do this. And, like, I remember he brought home like this random, I think he probably picked it up on the street somewhere or something, but he brought this random book of like diseases one day. And he was like, here, Mika, you might need this someday. Like, you might want to be a doctor. And like, I opened it and it had all these pictures of like gross things and all like, oh! No. And he's like, okay, she's not gonna be a doctor. But then also, like, in junior high, he bought me an electric typewriter. He's like, Mika, you're gonna need this for school. Like, you're gonna need this all the way through college. Little did you know that I was actually in the computer. But I remember in junior high, all of my papers and all of my stuff was typed. Was that I wanted to have an easier life than my parents, because they would always tell me how, like, my mom has second grade education, so she can barely write or read in Spanish, let alone English. My dad got a little further. I think he got up to junior high, like seventh grade. And then he goes, so he can read and write. He's fine, and he's learned English. It's not perfect, but he gets by with his job. But it's just like my dad works so much. He works like 15-hour days. Like even now, my mom tells me like, oh, like your dad he just got a new job and he's kind of far away from where we live, so he'll go and like sleep in the car. Just be like, and he'll sleep like 3 or 4 hours because he doesn't want to get a hotel. He doesn't want to spend the money on it. So, and it's too much to come back home and go back every day. Like, he wouldn't get any sleep if he did that. So he'll like take my mom makes him lunch for a couple of days now, and he'll go and do his like um, still 15-hour days, but then sleep in the car, and then come back home on his day off. But he's been doing, and I think the last time I talked to her, he was doing that like 7 days in a row. And I was like, damn, like, like, and I talked to my mom and I told her, like, well, I only slept like 3 or 4 hours. And she's like, oh, you and your dad are the same. But I'm like, no, I'm like, I'm in school. Like, yeah, it's stressful, but it's, I don't know, it's different. Like, I can sit down and go to a cafe. Like, I'm not just working 14-hour days. And he's a truck driver, so he's just driving and driving gas around in different gas stations. So, I don't know. It's like, I don't know what that work would be like, but I know it's like, it's hard to drive that many hours. Like, I've done the, like, drive to LA to San Francisco, and that's only 5, and I get tired. But I can't imagine doing that for 10 more hours every single day. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I always tell my mom, like, I wasn't cut out for hard labor. Like, they would always make me do things around the house when I was younger. Like, my dad, I remember one time he had me help him, like, retar the roof and, like, pretty much, like, I don't know, fix a hole or something in the roof. And I'm, like, and we didn't have a ladder, so we had to, like, climb up the tree to get up. And, like, it was just, I was like, ugh. I'm like, I have vertigo. I'm like, I don't like getting dirty. And here I am, like, helping my dad retar the roof, trying not to fall off of it. And I'm just like, I do not want to do this the rest of my life. So that part of the motivation was that. Like, I just want something better. Like, I want to sit in an office somewhere and I want to help, like, either someone like my family or like someone that's in my situation. Like, I want to use the skills that I've gained as far as like being bilingual and all this and improve them. But so that's part of it. It's like I want a better life. But then I also part of getting education was that I realized that it was the only way out of Somar. It was like if you stay in Somar, there aren't that many opportunities. Even though Somar's in LA, and LA is huge, and there's a lot of opportunities, but I feel like that whole like people don't really leave Somar, and if you don't leave, it's like there's like I don't know, there's nothing there. There's nothing for you to like want to like. People just like kind of hang out, have a couple kids, and like I know people that still like work at Home Depot or like something, which is not a bad thing. It's just that that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted to end up. Like my parents already had so many expectations for me just graduating from high school. They're like, oh well, we didn't even make it to high school, so they thought like once you're in high school, you can get a better job. But my idea of a better job changed along the way because of school. I don't know if it's more cultural, but it's the lack of knowledge. Like people couldn't really help me. Like that was on my own. It was just like you need to figure this out if you don't do it. Um, so if you didn't, like, I have so many cousins that didn't have that motivation, so they just didn't do it. Or, but then again, most of my cousins are in Mexico, so like I don't know, their system's different. I wouldn't know how to navigate myself over there either. But I don't know. I think part of it is the wanting, and part of it is the just the fact that I was here and I felt like I needed it. But as far as like, I think that was the biggest thing that I couldn't turn to anyone. I didn't have any cousins. I didn't have any relatives that had ever gone through this process. So it was like I had to seek someone else outside of my family. And for the most part, my family supported it because they're like, yeah, échale ganas. If you're gonna go to school, like we know you can make more money and you can have a better job and everything will be better for you if you get to college. So I had that support, but it was also limited in that. Like I remember when I did decide to go to college and I decided to go to San Francisco, my mom and all my family were like, "Well, why are you leaving your home? Like you're not married yet. You can't leave your house. Like that doesn't happen." And I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm 18. This is my American side talking. I'm like, I'm 18 and I can go to college and I'm leaving peace, you know. But they were all just like, oh, you're gonna like it was just like I don't know. It was looked down upon. I would say because they were like, oh no, pues quién sabe qué vas a hacer tú allá sola. Like God knows what you're gonna do. Like I didn't want to be a statistic, I guess, and that's what motivated me to get this college. I didn't want to be a negative statistic.
I didn't.
Like, do you realize that there's like institutional racism? Like, once you figured out what that word even meant, like that term, institutional racism. And then we started thinking about our own experience. We were like, yeah, that happened to us. Like, it's institutional racism is something that it's like you don't even see it happening to you. It's like something that's just embedded in your everyday life. It's like racism. I think it's usually people associated with like one of my friends, and she grew up in Napa, and she would say that they were like spit on her locker or like things like that. Very obvious. But here it's like, well, we went to a school and we were in an area that everyone's Latino, or mostly Latino. It was like 90% Latino. And it was like, out of those 90%, it's like maybe 50 of them are first generation, and then the other 50 are like maybe one or two generations, and most people are Mexican, some Salvadorians, so it's like very much like I didn't know what a minority was until I left. Like, I knew I was a minority, but I didn't know what that meant until I left somewhere, and I left my school because I felt like everyone was like me. So it's like, and you think about, like, if everyone's like you and the schools that you went to are all underperforming, like, I had textbooks that were older than me in high school. It's like they don't invest in the education. The food we had was like county food. Like, I think it was like food from county jails that they didn't give to them, so they gave to us instead. And it's just things like that it's like they don't put an effort into the students' education or their livelihoods or anything about, like, they didn't prep us for tests. Like, they didn't care what we did after the class, like, or after school. Like, if they really wanted us to succeed at those tests, like, they would have prepared us. But it was just like, no, like, okay, it's for attendance, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I had like my sister's boyfriend, like, he dresses very, supposedly quote unquote cholo. And like he told me that they set him aside and were like, hey, like, you're 18 now. You don't have to finish school if you don't want to. You don't have to come back if you don't want to. Like, you can just sign this document and then be on your way. And he was like, no, I want to finish. And he said they never helped him. Like, his counselor was like, you can take whatever you want. And so he would take like wood shop and things that he thought was fun his first semester. And by his last semester, he was like, oh shit, like, I don't have all these units that I'm supposed to have. Like, he had to kind of figure it out on his own to get out of school. And he had to take like, it was like after school classes and like, what did they call them? I don't remember. But I remember him and my sister were like in school from like sun up to sundown trying to get those extra credits to graduate because they hadn't had that help along the way. So it's like things like that people easily fall through the system and they don't care. And it's just like, I don't think a lot of people know that if you have work study, you can get food stamps. Oh my god, that like saved me.
Yeah.
Like, food stamps, and sometimes I don't know if like Section 8 housing as well, but yeah. So I think that should be part, especially for kids that are low income. Like, not only should they help them with their college application, but also help them with that, like how to fill out the food stamp, because that's also like a massive application that like they ask you for everything and anything. Like, how many times did you go to the bathroom today? Not really, but it's like
It's pretty extensive,
and
extensive.
and we have all these documents. So, granted that many kids might not, because you need to be working in order to get food stamps, but that would be a good workshop for students who are low income and first generation. Like, I would get like $150 to $200 a month for food, and that's such a big help, especially like if you're working. And like, I was barely making enough money for rent, and like my financial aid didn't cover everything. Like, I had to take out a loan to pay part of my school, and then the loan also helped me with my everyday expenses. And I still had like work study and did all these things. So I tried to not take out so much money, but I still had to in order to live in San Francisco. Which, I mean, I chose to live in the city, so that's also on me. Um, but it was like I didn't have all of the financial help that I would have liked. So I mean, that's also a big. I mean, $150 of food is help. And that's a lot of kids didn't know that. Like, I remember once I got my food stamps, that was how I was. Like, oh my god, go get food stamps, apply, get work study.
Everybody go get food stamps.
Yeah, there's also such a stigma with it. Like my dad was just like, I remember when I told him, he was just like insulted that I was on boot stamps. I'm like, Dad, I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's like, why don't you just ask me for money? I'm like, why would I ask you? Work so hard. Like I know you give me money whenever you can, but I don't want to put an extra burden on you. You know.
Yeah.
Also, I would say don't be scared to dream big. I mean, the worst they could say is no. But I remember I really liked Stanford and I wanted to apply. I started the application, and then I got intimidated by it. So I didn't apply. I didn't apply to any private schools. So I didn't think I would get in. So I was just like, but of course, if you don't apply, you're not going to get in 100%. So it's worth trying. And even if you don't, then it's fine. At least you tried. But you shouldn't close doors on yourself, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember the application was intimidating because the first page is like, well, do you know, did your parents go to Stanford? Do you know anyone that went to Stanford? Do you have any connection to Stanford? So that was like the first part of that application. It's like, who are your connections? And then after that, it was like all the other stuff. But once I realized it, I'm like, no, I don't even know any janitors at Stanford. So I'm probably not going to get in. They're not even going to look at this application. They're just going to toss it back in, you know? Um, but yeah, I would say that's number one. Um, Number two, also don't be scared to leave your parents. I think it's the best thing. I mean, not. I mean, it was hard, but it was leaving and being independent for a little bit. It's learning how to take care of yourself. It's also very good. Um, I mean, there's nothing wrong with staying at home either. Like I understand financially and all of that, but like I know there's a lot of pressure, especially for girls, to like stay at home and help and like. And I would say like don't be scared to like leave. Like if they get mad at you, they're gonna get over it. Like it's gonna happen to family. Like they're only gonna be mad for so long, and you're leaving for school. Like how are they? And eventually, people rationalize it. Like yes, but she left. And she's in school now. And there's also the fact that God knows what she's doing. But as long as you keep up in school and get your education, then it's like who cares what they think? It doesn't matter. Three. Um, Also, I think there's also a lot of fear and intimidation when you first go to college because you're like, shit, do I even know things? Do I
Mm-hmm.
even have the like mental capacity to learn this level? And now that I'm in grad school, I'm like, college seemed like such a like child's play almost. Like, yes, it's hard, but it's just you just need to stick with it. Like, I feel like a lot of people end up if they get out of college, is that they find it too hard, or they think that it's a I don't know, it's that mentality of just like I'm not good enough. And it's like it's just you've made it in. You just need to stick it out, and you need to um, find a support system. I think that's the biggest thing. Because if you find a support system, let's say you fail a class, well, who cares? There's one class, so you take it over. Like you're already in college, and I think a lot of people forget that. Like they start doubting themselves. I mean, I know I did. And it's good to fight. Like everybody told me when I left Silmar, they're like, make sure to like, hey, don't just hang out with a bunch of Mexicans because that's all you know. Like you need to expand your world. And I'm like, I would say the opposite. I would say find your support system. If that's hanging out with a bunch of Mexicans because you're Mexican,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to find like a familia and someone that knows what you're going through, then find that. You can always from your home base, you can always expand out, but you always need that home base, whatever that might be. I always I always admired those people that knew exactly what they wanted to study and knew what they wanted to do at the end. Like I wasn't one of those people. It took me 7 years to finish undergrad. And that's because I was in psychology and then I did liberal arts and then I changed my mind and did in Spanish I knew for sure I wanted to do. And then I went abroad, I studied abroad. I said everyone should study abroad. That's another advice. Everyone. Do it. Um, but yeah, like after I studied abroad, I came back and I'm like, I'm gonna do international relations. The hardest major probably on campus. I'm gonna do it because I want an international career. So it took me, and then working, it took me 7 years to finish both majors and while working and stuff. But it's like also just, I don't know. Even if it takes you a while, I feel like just stick with it. even now, it's like I don't really know what I want to do. So it's like you don't have to know. You can figure it out along the way. Like, I feel like every day, like I came in, and all these applications, they make you pick already or choose. Like in a Monsanto contract, you don't have to stick to whatever you write on the applications. You know, like I told when I came to Ms, I was like, I want to change policy so that everyone in undergrad has to study abroad. And like, yes, I would like that to happen. Is that actually going to happen? Who knows? Like maybe I end up doing development because now I'm exposed to development. You know, it's like you don't know what you're going to be exposed to along the way. That might change the career path. It might change what you want to do. So it's also like I don't know. Part of it's like if you're focused, then great. But if you're not, then oh well. Like you'll figure things out along the way. Something will work out. I guess. I feel like my education has gotten more from me measuring up to like what people want me, or like trying to be the top in the system that exists in the way that it's measured. To acknowledging that education is more than that's my own experience. Like I can make A's in every class and still not learn anything. So it's more of like me taking more ownership of like what I'm learning and how I'm doing it, and being satisfied with how that's going on, and like knowing now, also knowing how I learn, and then like if I get 100 on a test, it could be nothing. It could mean nothing because I'll learn something for a test, but then it's out my head the next day. Which in like the trips I go on, like those trips, I'm like, oh, that's in my muscle memory. That's like education. That's like in my body. It's experience. It's never gonna leave me. And it's expensive, but